In this video, we will learn how to write sine and cosine equations given the period, the midline, vertical shift, amplitude, phase shift, etc. So number 10. Write an equation for a cosine function with period pi and a phase shift negative pi over 8 and a vertical shift of 1. Okay, awesome. Well, as far as period goes, here's what we know about period. We know that period is equal to 2 pi over b. So if pi is the period, then that gives us pi is equal to 2 pi over b. It would be easy just to swap these like we do. So that would give us that the b value is 2 pi over pi. Of course, these pi's will cancel, which tells me that the b value is 2. Okay? So keep that in mind. So let's see. We're doing a cosine function, so let's just start and see how far we can get. So we're going to have a cosine function. So cosine, there you go. The next thing, the b value is always the first thing on the inside. So the b value is 2, so I'm going to have a 2 in there. Okay, so let's say 2x. Okay. Now I need the phase shift to be negative pi over 8. So it would be very tempting to put negative pi over 8 right here. But that would be wrong twice. Okay, for one thing, it's the opposite sign. So if this is negative pi over 8, then we need a plus. But for another thing, it's not the phase shift unless you pull the 2 out front of parentheses. So in other words, okay, I should put the 2 outside of the parentheses here, like this. Okay, let me just clean this up a bit. So if I put the 2 outside the parentheses like this, so I have cosine of 2, and then I'll have x plus pi over 8. Now it's a phase shift. Okay, it's got to be the b value. When you have a phase shift, the b value has to be outside the parentheses for it to be the phase shift. And change the sign. Okay, so the period gave me this b value. The phase shift is here. Made sure it's outside parentheses. What else you got? Vertical shift of 1. They're talking about the midline. So that's going to be a plus 1 right there. So that fits all of their criteria. Okay, they didn't say anything about the amplitude, so I can just, it doesn't matter what you put here. I'm just going to leave it blank. So this would be an answer, I'll say, for number 10. Okay, you could just put in any a value or leave it alone. Alright, how about number 11? Write an equation for a sine function with this period and this phase shift and this vertical shift. So it's almost the same kind of thing. This is good practice. In fact, why don't you pause the video, copier? Just pause and try to do it yourself. Why are you always trying to ride off of me? Okay, you're getting heavy. Let me put you down. Anyway, the period is got to be 2 pi over b, as we discussed. So if the period is 2 pi over b, then that means if the period is 2 pi over 3, then that means 2 pi over 3 is equal to 2 pi over b. Well, this one's a little bit simple because you see 2 pi over 3, 2 pi over b. Guess what? b is 3. Okay, it just lines up directly with 2 pi, 3b. b is 3. Okay, so hopefully you can just see that b is 3 without cross multiplying or something. Feel free to cross multiply if you need to. Anyways, let's go ahead and start building this thing. So we need a sine function. So I'm going to go y equals sine. Now here comes the b value is going to come next. Because I have a phase shift, I need to make sure that that b value is outside of my parentheses. Okay, it's got to be that way. So then I'm going to have x. This is a positive pi over 6, so I'm going to put negative pi over 6 in here. And then a vertical shift of 1, so I'm going to put that plus 1 on the end. They didn't say anything about the amplitude, so kabam. The most common mistake is going to be some kids are going to just put plus pi over 6, and many students are going to forget to put the 3 outside of parentheses. So don't do that. I should mention that if you wanted to distribute the 3, you can. Okay? So another version of this, because probably some other teachers will have you, depending on who your teacher is, your teacher may teach it by doing the distributive property. So you could write this as y equals cosine, and then putting the 2 on the inside, so that would be 2x plus. Okay, if I multiply 2 times pi over 8, alright, 2 goes into 8 4 times, so that would be pi over 4. I mean, you could use your calculator if you need to, but a little embarrassing. So you could write it this way, and on problem number 11, you could have written y equals sine. So putting the 3 on the inside of the parentheses requires the distributive property. So that would be 3x. And over here, if I've got 3 times pi over 6, 3 goes into 6 twice. So that would give me minus pi over 2 plus 1. So this pink version is the same as the blue. Alright, let's do one more example on this video, and we'll call it a video. Let's write an equation for this graph. First of all, see if you can visualize where the midline is. Okay, like right through the middle of this thing is right here. Okay, so here is my midline happening. It looks pretty close to 2. Okay, so there's my midline. Now, that helps me visualize. So, starting from this midline, see how we're going up and then down and then back? Does this seem like the sine function or cosine function to you? This looks like a sine function, to be sure. So, we're talking about the sine function. I'm leaving space for the amplitude here. So, I'm doing sine. If this is sine, there's definitely no phase shift because we're starting right at the y-axis, okay, with the pattern. So I don't have to worry about any phase shift. But what about a b value? All right, we might have a b value here. So let's figure out the b value. Hopefully you can tell that the period is pi. Alright, it's doing the entire cycle in a distance of pi. So let's use this period to figure out the b value. We know that the period is 2 pi over b. So that makes this pi equals 2 pi over b. If I swap these, I get that b is 2 pi over pi. The pi's cancel out. So b is 2. Okay, so that tells me that I could put a 2 in there. And like I said, there is no phase shift, so it'll be just 2x. Now, see the midline is up here at 2. So we'll put plus 2 on the end of this because of that. Alright, I kind of wish these had been 2 different numbers, but this 2 is because of the midline. Alright, this 2 is because of the b value. that just leaves the amplitude. Well, from the midline, okay, see how we're going from 2 to 5. So what's going on there? Well, from 2 to 5, that is a change of 3. Okay, and then from 2 down to -1, that is also a displacement of 3. Okay, so that's my amplitude. So that's why I'm going to have a 3 in the front. Now, do I need to stick a negative on it? Well, this is the right side up version, the positive version of sine when it goes up like this. If it dipped down first, it would be negative, but it doesn't. So we can just leave it positive. So this would be a good equation for this graph. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. Here endeth the lesson.